My blind wife was crying on the bedroom floor, her face bruised and bloody. The HOA Karen beat me with my cane, she whispered. That woman called my Sarah a liar and a fraud. She doesn't know who I am. But she's about to learn what happens when you hurt a billionaire's wife. Before you watch full story, comment below from which country are you watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more amazing stories. The autumn leaves crunched under my feet as I walked up the driveway. My phone buzzed with another business call, but I ignored it. After 3 weeks away closing deals across Europe, all I wanted was to hold my wife Sarah in my arms. Our modest 2-story house looked peaceful in the fading sunlight. We'd moved here 6 months ago, choosing this quiet neighborhood specifically for Sarah. After losing her sight in a car accident 2 years prior, she needed familiarity and safety. This community promised both. I pushed open the front door. Sarah. Honey, I'm home. Silence greeted me. Strange. Sarah always waited in the living room when I returned from trips, her face lighting up at the sound of my voice. Sarah. I called again, louder this time. A muffled sound came from upstairs. My heart lurched. I took the stairs 2 at a time and burst into our bedroom. What I saw made my blood turn to ice. Sarah sat on the floor, huddled against the bed, her arms wrapped around her knees. Her beautiful face was bruised, a dark purple mark spreading across her left cheek. Her lip was split and swollen. Dried blood stained her white blouse. Sarah. I dropped to my knees beside her. What happened? Who did this? She flinched at my touch, then recognized my voice. David? You're home. Tears streamed down her face as she reached for me. I pulled her into my arms, feeling her body shake with sobs. Tell me everything, I whispered, trying to control the rage building inside me. Who hurt you? Sarah took a shaky breath. The HOA president. Margaret Henderson. She attacked me with my own cane. My hands clenched into fists. Start from the beginning. Sarah wiped her tears. It happened 3 days ago. I was walking to the mailbox with Luna. She gestured to our golden retriever, who lay in the corner, whimpering softly. Margaret stopped her car and got out. She started yelling about Luna being off-leash. But Luna's your service dog. She doesn't need a leash by law. I tried to explain that. I showed her Luna's vest and certification. But Margaret wouldn't listen. She said I was lying about being blind, that I was just wearing sunglasses to avoid following HOA rules. I felt my jaw tighten. Then what? She grabbed my cane. I tried to hold on to it, but she yanked it away. Then she started hitting me with it, David. She beat me while screaming that I was a fraud, that blind people don't walk around neighborhoods alone, that I was making it all up. My vision blurred with tears of rage. Where was everyone? Didn't anyone help you? Sarah shook her head. Her daughter Stephanie was with her. She filmed the whole thing on her phone, laughing. Some neighbors came out, but Margaret told them I'd attacked her first. She's so powerful in this community, David. Everyone believes her. Did you call the police? I tried. They came, but Margaret showed them some HOA violation notices she'd apparently sent us. She claimed I'd been harassing her for weeks about our illegal garden gnomes and our mailbox color. She said today I finally snapped and attacked her, and she was defending herself. That's insane. You can't even see the garden gnomes. The officers didn't care. They saw my bruises, but Margaret had a tiny scratch on her arm. She said I did it. With Stephanie's edited video as evidence, they believed her story over mine. They actually gave me a warning, David. They said if there's any more trouble, they'll arrest me. I pulled Sarah closer, feeling her tears soak through my shirt. In that moment, I made a decision. Margaret Henderson had no idea who she'd messed with. Most people in this neighborhood knew me as David Chen, a quiet guy who worked in tech and traveled a lot for business. They didn't know that I was CEO of Chen Enterprises, a multinational corporation worth $8.3 billion. They didn't know I owned properties across 3 continents, had lawyers on retainer in 15 countries, and had connections that could make or break entire companies. I'd kept my wealth secret intentionally. After Sarah's accident, fortune hunters and fake friends had swarmed us. We'd moved here for anonymity, for peace. I'd bought this modest house through an LLC, drove a regular Honda, wore ordinary clothes. We just wanted a normal life. But normal was over. Margaret Henderson had declared war on my wife. Now she would learn what happens when you hurt the only person I love more than life itself. Rest now, I told Sarah softly. I'm going to fix this. David, please don't do anything rash. Margaret has the entire HOA board in her pocket. She'll make our lives miserable. I kissed her forehead. Trust me. She's the one who's going to be miserable. The next morning, I made my first call. Marcus? It's David. I need you to dig up everything on a Margaret Henderson. Lives in Meadowbrook Community, HOA President. I want to know every parking ticket, every business dealing, every skeleton in her closet. Marcus Reynolds, my head of security and investigations, didn't ask questions. How deep do you want me to go? To the core of the earth if necessary. I also need footage from every security camera in a 3-block radius from 3 days ago, around 2 p.m. Someone attacked my wife. I want evidence. I'm on it. Anything else? Yes. Buy the mortgage company that holds Henderson's home loan. Do it quietly through shell corporations. I don't want her knowing until I'm ready. Consider it done. My second call was to my attorney, Patricia Wong. Patricia, I need you to file assault charges against Margaret Henderson. Also, prepare a civil lawsuit for damages, emotional distress, and violation of disability rights laws. Make it big. 7 figures big. What happened, David? I told her everything. When I finished, Patricia's voice was cold steel. I'll destroy her legally. Give me 2 days to build an airtight case. My third call was to my friend Robert Sullivan, who sat on the National Board of the American Civil Liberties Union. Robert, I have a case involving disability discrimination and assault. Can your organization get involved? After hearing the details, Robert was furious. Absolutely. This is exactly the kind of abuse we fight against. I'll personally oversee this case. My fourth call was to Jennifer Park, an investigative journalist who'd won 2 Pulitzer Prizes exposing corruption. Jennifer, I have a story for you. HOA president beats blind woman with her own cane, then uses her position to cover it up. Interested? Send me everything you have. If this checks out, it'll be front-page news. Finally, I called the local news stations, disability rights advocacy groups, and social media influencers who specialized in exposing injustice. I created a network of allies, all ready to shine a spotlight on Margaret Henderson's cruelty. By that evening, Marcus called back. David, you're going to want to sit down for this. What did you find? Margaret Henderson is drowning in debt. Her house has a second mortgage she's behind on. Her car was repossessed last month. She's been embezzling from HOA funds to cover her expenses. Can you prove it? I've got bank statements, forged signatures, the works. She's been skimming $2,000 a month for the past 3 years. That's over $70,000 stolen from neighborhood residents. Perfect. What else? Her daughter Stephanie. She has multiple DUIs, currently driving on a suspended license. Oh, and Margaret herself has 2 prior assault charges from her previous neighborhood. Both cases were settled quietly with NDAs. So this wasn't her first time. Not even close. She's a serial bully who uses her position to avoid consequences. Until now. Send everything to Patricia. And Marcus, that security footage? Got it. 4 different cameras caught the attack. Crystal clear video of Margaret beating Sarah while her daughter laughed and filmed. There's no ambiguity here, David. It's assault, plain and simple. I smiled for the first time since coming home. Excellent work. The next morning, everything fell into place. Patricia filed criminal assault charges and a massive civil lawsuit. The local police, now aware they'd been lied to, reopened the investigation with the new video evidence. An arrest warrant was issued for Margaret Henderson. Robert's ACLU team scheduled a press conference, with Sarah as the face of disability rights abuse. Jennifer's article went live that morning, titled HOA Tyrant Attacks Blind Woman, Covers Up Crime. Within hours, it was viral. Local news crews swarmed Meadowbrook community. Neighbors who'd witnessed the attack but stayed silent now came forward, guilty and eager to tell the truth. The HOA board, facing legal liability, immediately suspended Margaret and launched an internal investigation into the embezzlement. I watched it all unfold from our living room, Sarah beside me on the couch, listening to the news reports. They're calling her a monster, Sarah whispered. People are protesting outside her house. She earned every bit of this, I said firmly. You don't get to hurt innocent people and walk away. That afternoon, Margaret was arrested. The footage of her being led away in handcuffs made every news outlet in the state. Her daughter Stephanie was also arrested for driving with a suspended license and for being an accessory to assault. But I wasn't finished. 2 days later, Margaret's mortgage company, now secretly owned by me, initiated foreclosure proceedings. Her lawyer called my lawyer, begging for mercy. Tell her client that mercy was what my wife showed when she tried to explain disability laws, Patricia told them coldly. Margaret Henderson chose violence instead. Actions have consequences. The HOA board voted unanimously to remove Margaret permanently. They also voted to reimburse every resident from the embezzled funds, which meant Margaret now faced criminal theft charges too. I attended the emergency HOA meeting where they announced these decisions. I sat in the back row, watching Margaret's allies scramble to distance themselves from her. We had no idea, one board member claimed. Margaret kept us in the dark. Lies. They'd all known. They'd all turned a blind eye to her bullying because it wasn't their problem. Until it became everyone's problem. After the meeting, several neighbors approached me. David, we're so sorry about what happened to Sarah, Mrs. Patterson from next door said. We should have done something. Yes, you should have, I replied quietly. My wife needed help, and your community failed her. They looked ashamed. Good. They should be. The following week, Sarah's civil lawsuit went to trial. The case was open and shut. With video evidence, witness testimonies, and medical reports, the jury deliberated for only 2 hours. They awarded Sarah $2.3 million in damages. Margaret's face went white as the verdict was read. She didn't have $2.3 million. She didn't have $23. The judgment would follow her for the rest of her life. But I had one more move to make. After the trial, I requested a private meeting with Margaret and her lawyer. We met in Patricia's conference room. Margaret looked haggard, her expensive clothes replaced with a cheap suit. The arrogance was gone, replaced with hollow desperation. Why are you doing this? She whispered. You've already destroyed my life. I leaned forward, my voice ice cold. You beat my blind wife with her own cane. You called her a liar and a fraud. You tried to have her arrested. You laughed while she bled and cried. And you feel sorry for yourself now? I made a mistake. I'm sorry. No, you're not sorry. You're just caught. How many other people have you bullied, Margaret? How many lives have you made miserable because you enjoyed the power? She said nothing. I slid a folder across the table. This is a summary of your debts. $340,000 in total, including the lawsuit judgment. Your house is worth $280,000, but after foreclosure fees and the mortgages, you'll walk away with nothing. Your credit is destroyed. You have criminal charges pending. You'll likely serve prison time. Margaret's hands shook as she opened the folder. What do you want from me? I want you to understand something. I could forgive this debt. I could make this all go away with one phone call. I paused, letting that sink in. But I won't. Because you need to learn that actions have consequences. You need to know what it feels like to be powerless, to be at someone else's mercy, to beg for compassion and receive none. Please, she sobbed. I'll do anything. There's nothing you can do. You made your choice when you hit my wife. Now live with it. I stood to leave, then turned back. Oh, one more thing. My wife can't see the satisfaction on your face right now, but I can. And it's delicious. As I walked out, I heard Margaret break down completely, her sobs echoing through the hallway. Patricia caught up with me at the elevator. That was brutal, David. She deserved brutal. I agree. But I've never seen you this ruthless. I pressed the button for the ground floor. I've built a business empire by being strategic, not emotional. But Sarah is my heart, Patricia. When someone tries to break my heart, I don't just defend it. I make sure they never threaten anyone's heart again. The elevator doors closed on Margaret's distant crying. 6 months passed. Margaret pleaded guilty to assault, embezzlement, and fraud. She was sentenced to 4 years in prison. Her daughter Stephanie got 2 years probation and a suspended license for 5 years. The HOA underwent complete restructuring. New leadership was elected, with strict oversight and financial transparency. They even created a Sarah's Law policy protecting disabled residents from discrimination. Sarah recovered physically, though the emotional scars took longer to heal. We started therapy together, working through the trauma. Luna never left her side, that faithful dog sensing Sarah needed extra protection now. One evening, as we sat on our porch watching the sunset, or rather, I watched while describing it to Sarah, she squeezed my hand. Do you think I'm vindictive? I asked quietly. For going so hard after Margaret? Sarah was silent for a moment. I think you love me. And sometimes love means protecting the people you care about, even if the protection comes in forms that scare you. It scared me how angry I was. How much I wanted her to suffer. She did suffer. And honestly, I'm not sorry about it. What she did was cruel, David. Not just to me, but to the idea that disabled people deserve respect and safety. By holding her accountable, you sent a message that we matter. You matter more than anything in this world to me. Sarah smiled, her scarred face radiant in the fading light. I know. And that's why you're my hero, even when you're being a little scary. I laughed, pulling her close. Just a little scary? Okay, a lot scary. But in a good way that don't mess with my wife way. We sat in comfortable silence, Luna at our feet, the neighborhood peaceful around us. Other residents waved as they walked by, friendly now, respectful. Sarah's attack had changed this community. People were kinder, more aware, more willing to stand up against injustice. From destruction came growth. From pain came change. From one woman's cruelty came a community's awakening. 6 months after Margaret's sentencing, I received a letter. It was from her, written from prison. The letter was long, rambling, full of self-pity and excuses. But at the end, she wrote something that caught my attention. I understand now what I did. Not because of the legal consequences, but because I've been helpless here. I've been bullied by other inmates. I've been at the mercy of people who enjoy having power over me. I finally understand what I put your wife through. It doesn't excuse what I did. Nothing can. But I want you to know that I'm truly sorry now. Not sorry I got caught. Sorry I caused pain. I showed the letter to Sarah. She listened as I read it aloud. What do you think? I asked. Sarah sighed. I think prison is teaching her what basic human decency should have taught her years ago. Do I forgive her? Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I'm glad she's learning. Should I respond? No. Let her sit with her regret. Some lessons need silence to truly sink in. I tore up the letter and threw it away. Sarah was right. Margaret had taken away my wife's peace, her safety, her trust in her community. A letter couldn't restore those things. Time did, though. Slowly, Sarah began walking around the neighborhood again with Luna. People stopped to chat, to apologize, to promise they'd never stay silent again. The community Sarah had once feared became the community that embraced her. 1 year after the attack, we held a neighborhood barbecue at our house. Nearly 50 people showed up, bringing food, laughter, and genuine warmth. Sarah moved through the crowd with confidence, Luna at her side, her smile bright and real. Mrs. Patterson pulled me aside. David, I need to tell you something. When Margaret attacked Sarah, I watched from my window. I saw everything. And I did nothing. I was afraid of Margaret, afraid she'd make my life difficult. I've regretted it every single day since. Why are you telling me this now? Because I want you to know that you did the right thing. By holding her accountable, you gave people like me permission to stand up too. Last week, I witnessed a man yelling at a disabled veteran in the grocery store. Old me would have walked away. New me told that man to shut up and apologize, or I'd call the police. And you know what? He apologized. Tears filled her eyes. You changed more than Margaret's life, David. You changed how this whole community thinks about justice and responsibility. Thank you. As the sun set on our barbecue, I found Sarah standing near the garden, her face turned toward the warmth of the fading light. Happy? I asked, slipping my arm around her waist. Very happy. This is what I wanted when we moved here. Community, acceptance, safety. You have it now. And if anyone ever threatens it again. Sarah put her finger on my lips. I know. You'll go full billionaire on them and destroy their entire existence. Exactly. She laughed, the sound like music. Let's hope it never comes to that again. Once was enough. Once was one time too many. We stood together as the last light faded, surrounded by friends and neighbors, Luna lying peacefully at our feet. In the distance, I could see our house, modest, warm, filled with love. Not the mansion I could afford, but the home we'd chosen. Margaret had tried to take this from us. She tried to break Sarah's spirit, to make us leave, to prove her power. She'd failed. And in failing, she taught our community an invaluable lesson, that cruelty has consequences, that bullies can be stopped, and that protecting the vulnerable is everyone's responsibility. As for my wealth, most neighbors still didn't know. They didn't need to. They knew me as David, Sarah's husband, Luna's other human, the guy who'd fought for justice when it mattered most. That was enough. That night, as Sarah and I lay in bed, she traced the outline of my face with her fingers, seeing me the way she always had, through touch, through voice, through love. Thank you, she whispered. For what? For being my hero. For fighting for me when I couldn't fight for myself. For showing me that money isn't what makes you powerful, love is. I kissed her forehead. You never needed me to fight for you. You're the strongest person I know. I just made sure everyone else saw what I've always seen. What's that? That you're extraordinary. That you deserve respect and dignity and peace. That anyone who threatens those things will answer to me. Sarah smiled against my chest. My fierce protector. Always. In the darkness of our room, with Luna snoring softly at the foot of the bed and the sound of our peaceful neighborhood outside the window, I held my wife and felt complete. Margaret had learned her lesson in a prison cell. I'd learned mine too, that sometimes love means fighting, means being ruthless, means using every resource at your disposal to protect what matters most. I'd do it all again in a heartbeat. Because at the end of the day, I wasn't a billionaire who happened to have a wife. I was a husband who happened to have resources. And every dollar, every connection, every ounce of power I possessed existed for one purpose: to keep Sarah safe, happy, and loved. Margaret Henderson had forgotten that some people aren't just wealthy. They're willing to burn the world down for the person they love. I never had to remind anyone of that again. The morning sun streamed through our kitchen windows as I made coffee. Sarah sat at the table, Luna's head resting on her lap, listening to an audiobook through her earphones. She looked peaceful, content, healed. 2 years had passed since Margaret's attack. 2 years of rebuilding, healing, and growing stronger together. Sarah had started a non-profit organization called Cain and Abel, dedicated to supporting assault victims with disabilities. What began as her personal therapy had transformed into a national movement. She gave speeches, appeared on podcasts, and helped dozens of people find their voice after trauma. My wife, who'd once been afraid to walk to our mailbox, now traveled the country advocating for disability rights. I accompanied her on every trip, always in the background, always protecting her, but letting her shine. "You're staring again," Sarah said without removing her earphones, a smile playing on her lips. "How do you always know? I can feel your love from across the room. It's like warmth on my skin." She pulled out her earphones. "What are you thinking about? How proud I am of you. How far we've come." Sarah's smile widened. "We came far because you wouldn't let me give up. Because you showed me that being a victim doesn't mean staying a victim." Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. Marcus's name flashed on the screen. "I need to take this," I told Sarah, stepping into my home office. "Marcus, what's going on?" "David, you need to see something. I'm sending you a link right now." My computer pinged. I opened the email and clicked the video link. It was a news report from a small television station in Nevada. The reporter stood outside a women's shelter. "We're here at New Beginnings Shelter, where former HOA President Margaret Henderson has been volunteering for the past 6 months since her release from prison. Ms. Henderson, who served 2 years for assault and embezzlement, says she's dedicated her life to helping others avoid the mistakes she made." The camera panned to Margaret. She looked different, older, thinner, her hair gray instead of the dyed blonde I remembered. But more than her appearance, her entire demeanor had changed. The arrogance was gone. In its place was humility, maybe even wisdom. "I destroyed someone's life because of my ego," Margaret said to the camera, her voice cracking. "I hurt a woman who'd done nothing wrong. I used my power to bully people who couldn't fight back. Prison gave me time to understand the monster I'd become." The reporter asked, "What changed you?" "Being helpless changed me. Being at the mercy of people who enjoyed hurting me changed me. I finally understood what I'd done to Sarah Chen and countless others. I can't undo my actions, but I can dedicate the rest of my life to helping people I once would have bullied." The segment showed Margaret working with disabled women at the shelter, helping them fill out forms, listening to their stories, advocating for their needs. The director of the shelter praised her work, calling her transformed and genuine. I closed the video, conflicted emotions swirling inside me. Marcus spoke through the phone. "What do you want me to do with this information?" "Nothing. Just keep monitoring. If it's real, good for her. If it's a performance, I want to know." "Understood." I hung up and sat in silence. Part of me wanted Margaret to stay broken, to suffer forever. But another part, the part that loved Sarah's compassion, wondered if redemption was possible. I didn't tell Sarah about the video. Not yet. I needed to process it first. 3 months later, I received a letter forwarded through Patricia's office. The return address was the women's shelter in Nevada. I debated throwing it away unopened. But curiosity won. Dear Mr. Chen, I don't expect you to read this. I don't deserve your time or attention. But I'm writing anyway because you need to know the truth about who I've become. Prison broke me in ways I needed to be broken. I lost everything, my home, my reputation, my freedom, my daughter's respect. Stephanie hasn't spoken to me in 2 years. I deserve that. But losing everything taught me what matters. For the first time in my life, I had nothing to hide behind. No position, no power, no money. Just me and the consequences of my actions. I work at a women's shelter now. Many of the women here are disabled, like your wife. They've been abused, discriminated against, pushed aside by society. Every day, I see Sarah in their faces. Every day, I remember what I did to her. I help them now because I can't help Sarah. I advocate for them because I tried to silence her. I protect them because I hurt her. This isn't about forgiveness. I don't ask for that. I don't deserve it. This is about accountability. About spending the rest of my life trying to balance the scales I destroyed. There's a young woman here named Maria. She's blind, like Sarah. Last week, her landlord tried to evict her, claiming her service dog violated the lease. I helped her file a complaint with Fair Housing. We won. Maria gets to keep her dog in her apartment. I thought about your wife while fighting for Maria. I thought about how I could have helped Sarah instead of hurting her. I can't change the past, but I can honor Sarah by helping women like her. I don't expect a response. I don't expect anything. I just wanted you to know that your wife's suffering wasn't meaningless. It changed me. Through her pain, I finally learned empathy. If Sarah's nonprofit ever needs volunteers in Nevada, I'd be honored to help. Not for recognition or redemption, but because it would give meaning to the destruction I caused. With sincere remorse, Margaret Henderson. I read the letter 3 times. Then I walked upstairs to where Sarah was organizing files for her nonprofit. I need to show you something. I read Margaret's letter aloud. Sarah sat perfectly still, her expression unreadable. When I finished, silence filled the room. Finally, Sarah spoke. What do you think? I think prison changed her. The question is whether the change is real or temporary. Do you want it to be real? I considered carefully. Part of me wants her to suffer forever. But the bigger part of me, the part that loves you, recognizes that your pain created something meaningful. Not just your nonprofit, but maybe her transformation too. Sarah stood and walked to the window, her hand trailing along the furniture for guidance. I've thought about Margaret a lot over the years. I've been angry, hurt, betrayed. But lately, I've been thinking about forgiveness. You don't owe her forgiveness. I know. But forgiveness isn't for her, it's for me. Holding on to hate is exhausting, David. It steals energy I could use helping others. So what do you want to do? Sarah turned toward me, her blind eyes somehow seeing straight into my soul. I want to meet her. Are you sure? No. But I think it's necessary. For both of us. 2 weeks later, we flew to Nevada. I'd arranged everything through Patricia, keeping Sarah's visit confidential. The shelter director knew only that a major nonprofit executive wanted to tour the facility. We arrived at the shelter on a Tuesday morning. The building was modest but well-maintained, clearly run by people who cared. The director, a woman named Rosa, greeted us warmly. We're honored to have you here, Ms. Chen. Your work has inspired so many people. Thank you. I understand you have a volunteer who used to be in the HOA leadership. Rosa's expression became guarded. Margaret Henderson. She's been with us for 8 months. I know about her past. She was honest about everything when she applied. I almost turned her away, but something told me to give her a chance. How has she been? Remarkable. She works harder than anyone, never complains, and genuinely connects with our residents. The women trust her, especially the disabled women. Margaret seems to understand their struggles in a way most people don't. I'd like to meet her. Rosa hesitated. Ms. Chen, I know who you are. I know what Margaret did to you. Are you sure about this? I'm sure. Rosa led us to a common room where several women sat together, some filling out paperwork, others just talking. Margaret sat with a young woman in a wheelchair, patiently helping her complete a housing application. She looked up as we entered. Her eyes met mine first, and I saw recognition, fear, and shame flash across her face. Then she saw Sarah, and the color drained from her features. Margaret, Rosa said gently, this is Sarah Chen. She'd like to speak with you. Margaret stood slowly, her hands trembling. Mrs. Chen. I don't know what to say. You can start by answering a question, Sarah said, her voice steady. Is your transformation real, or is this just another performance? Margaret's eyes filled with tears. It's real. Every minute of every day is real. I wake up remembering what I did to you. I go to sleep with it haunting my dreams. This work, she gestured around the room, this is the only thing that makes the guilt bearable. Guilt isn't growth, Sarah replied. I need to know if you've actually changed, or if you're just sorry you got caught. I've changed. Prison stripped away everything I used to hide behind. My power, my status, my lies. All I had left was the truth about who I'd become, a bully, an abuser, someone who hurt vulnerable people to feel important. Margaret wiped her tears. I met women in prison who were disabled, women who'd been victimized their whole lives. They showed me kindness I didn't deserve. One woman, Carmen, was partially blind. She became my friend even after learning what I'd done to you. She told me that hurt people, but healed people heal people. Sarah listened without interrupting. Carmen challenged me, Margaret continued. She said if I was truly sorry, I'd spend my life helping the people I used to hurt. So that's what I'm doing. Every woman I help here is a chance to honor you, to honor Carmen, to honor the person I should have been. Show me, Sarah said simply. Show me what you do here. For the next 3 hours, Margaret showed us around the shelter. She introduced us to women she'd helped, victims of domestic violence, disabled women facing discrimination, immigrants struggling with the system. Each woman spoke warmly of Margaret, calling her patient, kind, understanding. One woman, Teresa, had cerebral palsy. Margaret fought my insurance company for 3 months to get my wheelchair repaired, Teresa told us. She called them every single day, never giving up. She made me feel like I mattered. Another woman, Kim, was blind like Sarah. Margaret reads to me twice a week. She describes things to me so beautifully. She helps me fill out forms, makes phone calls for me, advocates when people treat me like I'm invisible. By the afternoon, I could see the exhaustion on Sarah's face. This was emotionally draining for her. Can we have a moment alone with Margaret? Sarah asked Rosa. Rosa nodded and ushered the other women out, giving us privacy in a small meeting room. Sarah sat down, Luna beside her. I stood near the door, watchful. Margaret remained standing, her posture defeated. Sit, Sarah instructed. Margaret sat across from her. I came here today expecting to hate you, Sarah said quietly. I wanted to see through your act, to prove you were still the same person who beat me and called me a liar. Margaret said nothing, tears streaming down her face. But I don't see that person anymore. I see someone broken and trying to rebuild. I see someone using their pain to help others. Sarah paused. I see someone learning what I learned after my accident, that losing everything can teach you what truly matters. I'm so sorry, Margaret whispered. I know those words are inadequate. I know I can never undo what I did. But I am deeply, profoundly sorry. I know you are. And that's why I'm going to tell you something important. Sarah leaned forward. I forgive you. Margaret's sob was audible. You can't. You shouldn't. Forgiveness isn't about what you deserve. It's about what I need. I need to let go of the hate. I need to move forward without carrying your sins with me. Sarah's voice was strong, clear. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean what you did was okay. It means I'm choosing peace over vengeance. I felt my own tears forming. My incredible wife, showing grace I couldn't have imagined. Thank you, Margaret whispered. Thank you for giving me something I can never repay. You can repay it by continuing this work. By helping women who need advocates. By being the person who protects instead of destroys. Sarah stood, and Luna rose with her. I'm going to do something, Margaret. I'm going to tell your story. Margaret looked frightened. What do you mean? In my advocacy work, I talk about assault, about disability discrimination, about justice. But I'm going to add a new chapter, about redemption. About how even people who cause terrible harm can change if they choose to do the work. You do that for me. Not for you. For the people who need to hear that change is possible. For the women in prison who want to be better. For the victims who need to know their pain can lead to transformation, not just destruction. Margaret covered her face with her hands, overcome with emotion. Sarah turned to me. I'm ready to go. I guided her toward the door, then paused and looked back at Margaret. Don't make me regret this. If you hurt anyone again, if this transformation is fake, I will destroy you more completely than before. Understood? Margaret nodded, unable to speak. Good. Then keep doing what you're doing. Keep earning the redemption my wife just gave you. As we left the shelter, Sarah held my arm tightly. Did I do the right thing? You did the extraordinary thing. I'm in awe of you. I'm still angry, David. Forgiveness doesn't erase the pain. But I can't carry both pain and progress. I had to choose. I kissed her forehead. You chose love. You always choose love. That's why you're better than me. You're plenty good. You're just protective. There's nothing wrong with that. On the flight home, Sarah was quiet, processing everything. I held her hand, giving her space to think. Finally, she spoke. Do you think she'll stay changed? I don't know. But I think today gave her a reason to try. You gave her grace she didn't earn. That's a powerful gift. Or a terrible mistake. We'll find out. Marcus will keep monitoring her. If she backslides, we'll know. Sarah nodded. I hope she makes it. Not for her sake, for the women she's helping. They deserve an advocate who won't abandon them. 3 months after our Nevada trip, I was in my office when Patricia called. David, you need to see this. She sent me a link to a national morning show. The segment was titled, From Bully to Advocate, One Woman's Journey of Redemption. Sarah was being interviewed, poised and articulate as always. The host asked about her nonprofit's work, and Sarah talked about helping assault victims rebuild their lives. Then the host asked, You have a unique perspective on redemption. Can you tell us about that? Sarah nodded. 2 years ago, I was assaulted by someone who abused their power. That person went to prison. But recently, I learned she's been working at a women's shelter, helping disabled victims of violence. I met with her, and I chose to forgive her. The host looked surprised. That must have been difficult. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done. But I realized that holding on to hate was poisoning me. Forgiveness set me free. Do you think people can truly change? I think people can change if they do the work. Not just apologizing, but actively becoming better, helping others, acknowledging harm, and spending years proving their transformation is real. Change is possible, but it requires genuine effort and accountability. The camera cut to footage of Margaret at the shelter, working with residents. A caption identified her as Margaret Henderson, former assault perpetrator, current victim advocate. Margaret spoke to the camera. I can never undo what I did to Sarah Chin. But I can honor her by helping women like her every day for the rest of my life. That's my purpose now, to be the person I should have been when I first met her. The segment ended with Sarah's final words, hurt people. But healed people heal people. I choose healing, for myself and for everyone touched by this story. I sat back in my chair, overwhelmed with emotion. My wife had turned her trauma into transformation, not just for herself, but for her attacker too. That evening, I found Sarah in our bedroom, Luna at her feet. I saw the interview, I said softly. What did you think? I think you're the bravest person I've ever known. You took your pain and created something beautiful from it. Sarah smiled. Margaret's change is her own work. But maybe showing her grace helped. Maybe knowing she could be forgiven gave her a reason to keep trying. Are you at peace with all of this? Mostly. Some days I'm angry. Some days I remember the beating and want her to suffer. But most days, I'm grateful. Grateful? That attack could have destroyed me. Instead, it led me to start a nonprofit that's helped hundreds of people. It taught me strength I didn't know I had. It showed me that you'd burn the world down to protect me. She reached for my hand. And it taught me that forgiveness is powerful, not weak. I pulled her close. You taught me that vengeance has limits. That sometimes the greatest power is choosing mercy. We balance each other, Sarah said. Your strength protects me. My compassion softens you. Together, we're complete. That night, lying in bed with Sarah asleep beside me and Luna snoring softly, I thought about the journey we'd been on. 2 years ago, I'd been consumed with rage, determined to destroy Margaret Henderson completely. I'd succeeded, her life had been shattered. But Sarah had shown me something more powerful than destruction, redemption. Margaret would never fully repay her debt. The scars she'd left on Sarah, physical and emotional, were permanent. But she was trying, genuinely working to become better. And Sarah, my incredible wife, had chosen to give her that chance. Maybe that's what true strength looked like. Not the power to destroy your enemies, but the wisdom to know when destruction has served its purpose and mercy becomes the greater victory. I'd been prepared to hate Margaret Henderson forever. But Sarah had taught me that some stories don't end with revenge, they end with transformation, forgiveness, and the hard work of becoming better. As I drifted off to sleep, I realized that Margaret wasn't the only one who'd been transformed. I had too. Sarah's grace had softened my edges, taught me that love isn't just about protection, it's also about healing. Margaret Henderson had tried to break my wife. Instead, she'd revealed Sarah's unbreakable spirit and shown me the difference between justice and vengeance. The billionaire in me would always be ready to destroy anyone who threatened Sarah. But the husband in me now understood that sometimes the greatest victory is choosing peace. Sarah had won not by crushing her enemy, but by offering redemption. And in doing so, she'd taught everyone watching, including me, what true strength really means. The conference hall was packed with over 2,000 people. I stood backstage, watching Sarah through the curtain as she delivered the keynote speech at the National Disability Rights Convention. 5 years ago, I was beaten by someone who saw my blindness as a weakness to exploit. Sarah's voice rang clear through the microphone. Today, I stand before you as proof that our disabilities don't define us, our responses to adversity do. The audience erupted in applause. Luna sat beside Sarah on stage, the picture of calm dignity. Sarah continued, my attacker went to prison. But more importantly, she went through a transformation. She chose to spend her life helping the very people she once hurt. That's not an excuse for what she did, it's an example of what's possible when someone truly commits to change. I felt a hand on my shoulder. Marcus stood beside me, smiling. Your wife is incredible. I know. Did you hear the news about Margaret? I turned to him. What news? She's been nominated for the Nevada Community Service Award. The women's shelter submitted her name. They say she's helped over 300 women in the past 5 years, with a special focus on disabled victims of abuse. I absorbed this information slowly. 300 women. 300 lives changed because Sarah gave her a second chance. Marcus paused. You were right to let Sarah handle it her way. I wasn't right. I was dragged kicking and screaming into being right. Sarah did the hard work of forgiveness. I just stopped trying to destroy Margaret. Marcus chuckled. Still counts. On stage, Sarah was taking questions from the audience. A young woman with crutches raised her hand. Ms. Chen, how do you balance accountability with forgiveness? Don't we owe it to other victims to keep perpetrators punished? Sarah's response was thoughtful. Accountability and forgiveness aren't opposites. Margaret served her time. She paid her legal debt. But more than that, she's spending every day of her life making amends through action, not just words. Real forgiveness demands real change. She's provided that. Another hand went up. But don't you still hate her sometimes? Honestly? Yes. Some days I wake up and remember the beating. I feel the fear again, the helplessness, the pain. On those days, I'm angry. But I've learned that healing isn't linear. You can forgive someone and still have hard days. The difference is, I don't let those hard days control my life anymore. The audience gave her a standing ovation. After the speech, we went to dinner with several advocacy leaders. The conversation turned to Sarah's nonprofit, which had grown beyond anyone's expectations. We've opened our 15th regional office next month, Sarah told the group. We're providing legal support, counseling, and advocacy for assault victims with disabilities across 20 states now. That's remarkable growth in 5 years, said Dr. Patel, a disability rights lawyer. What's your secret? Sarah smiled. Authentic stories. We don't just provide services, we share journeys of transformation. People connect with real experiences, not statistics. Like Margaret Henderson's story? Dr. Patel asked. Exactly. Her redemption arc has inspired dozens of former offenders to do better. We've had people reach out asking how they can make amends for past wrongs. That ripple effect is powerful. Later that night, in our hotel room, Sarah seemed restless. What's on your mind? I asked. I've been thinking about Stephanie. Margaret's daughter? Yes. She was part of the attack too. She filmed it, laughed at my pain. But she disappeared after the trial. I wonder if she ever changed like her mother did. Want me to have Marcus find her? Sarah considered this. Yes. But not to confront her, just to know if she's okay. She was young, influenced by her mother. Maybe she deserves a chance at redemption too. 2 weeks later, Marcus delivered his report. Stephanie Henderson changed her name to Stephanie Moore 5 years ago. She's living in Oregon, working as a counselor at a rehabilitation center for people with substance abuse issues. Is she doing well? Sarah asked. By all accounts, yes. She got sober 3 years ago, went back to school, and now helps others recover from addiction. Several of her colleagues describe her as empathetic and dedicated. Sarah nodded slowly. She found her own path to redemption. There's more, Marcus continued. Stephanie runs a blog about accountability and growth. She wrote a post 6 months ago titled "The Day I Laughed at Someone's Pain." It's about attacking you, Sarah. She doesn't name you specifically, but the details match. What does she say? Marcus pulled it up on his tablet and read aloud. I was 19 when I stood by and filmed my mother beating a blind woman. I laughed. I thought it was funny to see someone helpless and afraid. That memory haunts me every single day. I can't undo it. I can't apologize enough. But I can dedicate my life to helping people who are suffering, the way I made someone suffer. Every person I help in my work is an apology to the woman I hurt. I'm sorry. I'm so deeply sorry. Sarah was quiet for a long moment. Send her a message for me. What message? Tell her I forgive her too. Tell her to keep doing good work. And tell her that her mother is doing well, in case she doesn't know. Marcus looked surprised. You want to reconnect them? I want to give her the same chance I gave Margaret. Everyone deserves a path forward. Marcus arranged a video call between Stephanie and Sarah the following week. I sat beside Sarah, protective but silent, as Stephanie's face appeared on the screen. She looked nothing like the arrogant teenager I remembered. Her eyes were kind now, weathered by experience and hardship. Ms. Chen, Stephanie's voice cracked. I don't know what to say. Start by knowing that I forgive you, Sarah said gently. I forgive you for filming. I forgive you for laughing. I forgive you for not helping me. Stephanie broke down crying. I was so cruel. So heartless. I've spent 5 years trying to become someone better, but I can never erase what I did to you. You don't need to erase it. You need to learn from it. And it sounds like you have. I got sober because of what happened. I realized I'd become a monster, just like my mom. The guilt nearly destroyed me. But my sponsor helped me understand that the only way to honor you was to become someone who helps instead of hurts. Have you talked to your mother? Sarah asked. No. I haven't spoken to her since the trial. I was so angry at her for dragging me into her cruelty. I blamed her for everything. She's changed, Stephanie. Really changed. She works at a women's shelter, helping disabled women rebuild their lives. She's doing good work, just like you are. Stephanie wiped her tears. Is she happy? She's at peace. She's found purpose in making amends. Maybe you should reach out to her. I don't know if I can. Sarah leaned forward. Stephanie, I've learned that forgiveness heals both the victim and the perpetrator. Your mother needs to know you've grown and changed. And you need to know she has too. You both deserve closure. After the call ended, I pulled Sarah into my arms. You're giving away forgiveness like it's infinite. It is infinite, David. That's what I've learned. Forgiveness doesn't run out. The more you give, the more you have. When did you become so wise? When I married a man who showed me that love means protecting people, even from their own worst selves. You protected me by destroying Margaret's power. Now I'm protecting her by giving her redemption. We're two sides of the same coin. 3 months later, I received an unexpected package at my office. Inside was a handwritten letter and a small wooden box. The letter was from Margaret. Dear Mr. and Mrs. Chen. My daughter contacted me last week. We spoke for 3 hours. We cried, we apologized, we forgave each other. Sarah, you gave me back my daughter. There are no words adequate to thank you. I'm writing because I wanted you to know the full scope of what your grace has created. In the 5 years since we last met, I've helped 347 women at the shelter. But more than that, I've trained 23 volunteers who've gone on to work at other shelters. Those volunteers have helped thousands more women. Your decision to forgive me created a ripple effect of healing that extends far beyond me. Every woman I help, I tell about you. I tell them about a blind woman who was beaten and could have spent her life consumed by hate, but instead chose love. You inspire them, Sarah. You give them hope that healing is possible. The box contains something I made in a woodworking class. It's small and imperfect, but it's made with gratitude. Your forgiveness saved my life. Now I'm using that life to save others. With eternal gratitude, Margaret Henderson. I opened the wooden box. Inside was a small carved cane, beautifully detailed, with words engraved along its length, "Strength through grace, Sarah's legacy." I brought it home and placed it in Sarah's hands, describing every detail. She ran her fingers over the carving, tears streaming down her face. She understands now. Understands what? That the cane isn't just a tool for the blind. It's a symbol. She used it as a weapon against me. Now she sees it as a symbol of strength, dignity, and grace. She's reclaimed it, just like I reclaimed my life. That night, Sarah added the carved cane to the display in her nonprofit's main office, alongside photos and stories of survivors. She included Margaret's letter, making it public. The response was overwhelming. Hundreds of people wrote to Sarah, sharing their own stories of forgiveness and redemption. Former offenders reached out, asking how they could make amends. Victims found hope in Sarah's journey. But the most touching response came from an unexpected source. 6 months after receiving Margaret's gift, we were invited to Nevada for a special ceremony. The women's shelter was opening a new wing, funded by donations that had poured in after Margaret's story went viral. As we arrived, I saw Margaret waiting at the entrance. But she wasn't alone. Stephanie stood beside her, both of them nervous and hopeful. "Mrs. Chen," Margaret said softly. "We'd like to show you something." They led us to the new wing. Above the entrance was a bronze plaque that read, "The Sarah Chen Center for Dignity and Healing, where grace creates change." Sarah stood silent, her hand covering her mouth, tears flowing freely. "This center will specifically serve blind and visually impaired women who've experienced abuse," Margaret explained. "Stephanie and I will both work here. We'll dedicate our lives to making sure no woman goes through what you went through. We'll protect them," Stephanie added. "The way we should have protected you." Sarah stepped forward and hugged them both. "Thank you for honoring my pain by preventing others from experiencing it." The three women stood together, crying, healing, transforming. I watched from a few feet away, overwhelmed by the beauty of this moment. 5 years ago, I'd wanted to destroy Margaret Henderson. I'd used every resource at my disposal to crush her, to make her suffer, to ensure she paid for hurting Sarah. I'd succeeded. But Sarah had done something greater. She'd rebuilt Margaret into someone who now prevented the very pain she'd once caused. That evening, at the shelter's opening celebration, Sarah gave a speech. 5 years ago, I couldn't have imagined standing here. The woman who attacked me was my enemy. I wanted her to suffer. I wanted her destroyed. She paused. And she was destroyed. Her old self died in prison. But something new was born, someone committed to healing instead of hurting. Sarah turned toward Margaret and Stephanie. "These women represent what's possible when we choose growth over punishment, healing over hate, redemption over revenge. They're proof that people can change if we give them a chance." She faced the audience again. "But here's what I want you to remember, forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean what happened was okay. It means I refuse to let my attacker's worst moment define my entire life. I refuse to give hate that much power." The room erupted in applause. After the ceremony, as we prepared to leave, Margaret approached us one last time. "I have one more thing to tell you," she said quietly. "I'm writing a book about my journey, from bully to advocate. All proceeds will go to Sarah's nonprofit. I want my story to fund the healing of others." "What's the book called?" I asked. "The Cane That Changed Everything, From Violence to Grace." It's about how one moment of cruelty led to a lifetime of redemption, all because one woman chose to forgive. Sarah smiled. Write it honestly. Don't make yourself the hero. Show people the real work of change, the daily choices, the failures, the struggle to become better. I will. I promise. As we drove away from the shelter that night, Sarah held my hand tightly. Do you regret anything? She asked. About how we handled all this? I thought carefully. I regret that you were hurt. I regret that Margaret existed in a world that allowed her cruelty to flourish unchecked. But I don't regret destroying her power or fighting for justice. And my forgiveness? Do you regret that I forgave her? No. Your forgiveness was the greatest act of strength I've ever witnessed. I tore Margaret down. You built her back up into something better. We were both necessary. Sarah nodded. Justice and mercy, accountability and grace. We needed both to create real change. I'm still the guy who will destroy anyone who threatens you. I know. And I'm still the woman who will offer redemption when someone truly changes. We balance each other perfectly. 10 years after the attack, Sarah's nonprofit had become a national powerhouse, helping thousands of disabled assault victims find justice, healing, and support. Margaret's book became a bestseller, funding programs across the country. Stephanie opened her own rehabilitation center specifically for people seeking redemption after causing harm. And me? I remained Sarah's protector, her partner, her balance. I'd learned that true power wasn't just about destroying enemies, it was about knowing when destruction had served its purpose and healing could begin. The carved cane Margaret had made sat in Sarah's office, a reminder that weapons can become symbols of grace, that attackers can become advocates, and that the greatest revenge isn't destruction, it's transformation. Sarah had taught the world that forgiveness doesn't make you weak. It makes you powerful enough to break cycles of violence, courageous enough to offer second chances, and wise enough to know that healing serves everyone better than hate. As I watched my wife speak at conferences, lead her nonprofit, and inspire thousands of people with her story, I realized that Margaret Henderson had tried to break the wrong person. Sarah wasn't breakable. She was bendable, flexible enough to absorb pain and transform it into purpose, strong enough to carry forgiveness alongside justice, and brave enough to show the world that love is more powerful than revenge. Margaret had attacked a blind woman with her cane. But that blind woman had vision clearer than anyone, the vision to see beyond pain to possibility, beyond vengeance to healing, beyond destruction to redemption. And that vision changed everything. Not just for Sarah, not just for Margaret, not just for Stephanie or the hundreds of women they'd helped. But for everyone who heard their story and learned that the greatest strength isn't in how hard you can hit back, it's in how gracefully you can lift others up after they've knocked you down. That was Sarah's true superpower. Not her resilience, though she had that in abundance. Not her advocacy, though she'd built an empire of healing. Her superpower was grace. And grace, I'd learned, was the most dangerous weapon of all, because it didn't destroy enemies. It transformed them into allies, allies into advocates, advocates into healers. 10 years after a HOA Karen beat my blind wife with her cane, that Karen now protected hundreds of blind women from experiencing the same pain. That wasn't justice. That was something better. That was redemption. And my brilliant, graceful, unbreakable wife had created it all by doing the hardest thing imaginable, forgiving her attacker and giving her a chance to become better. I was the billionaire who destroyed Margaret's power. But Sarah was the hero who rebuilt her into something worth saving. And in the end, that made all the difference.